But then, in the light of like trying to avert a World War III as well, some people will say that what is constantly pushing us towards war is like this huge elephant in the room, right? That nobody seems to be addressing, which is like the military-industrial complex.
Oh yes.
Right? Particularly in the US, right, where you have like not maybe not only with the US, even in France as well and some other European countries, you have like this gagamont, uh, these gagamont military companies, right? They used to be like, I think in the US there were like 56 of them. Then they made some regulations that made them to merge into five, right? So you have like five of them that are majorly supplying these weapons. So do you think like this profitalization or this profiting of war is pretty much what is responsible, number one, for keeping up with this cycle of warfare, right? Or do you think that it is basically just, people trying to defend themselves? At the end of the day, they will need weapons, so we should allow this the continuation of the military industrial complex, right? And I think, especially in the US, it's like a growing concern where you have some people like Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, right? People that they perceive them to be like, people that are profiting from war and constantly trying to push warfare and all of that. You saw it with Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, the way they were clamoring for it, like, let's get them.
Oh.
Yeah, Afghanistan and all the likes. Yeah. So basically the premise of the question is like, is the military industrial complex continuing this cycle of war? Are they pushing us towards, the continuation of this cycle of war, or are they just a necessity for the defense of states?
They're surely not necessary for the defense of state, but I think they are taking advantage of it. They might not be at the front of pushing it because eventually we can most times point to the cause of the conflict. Maybe they opt for it and try to take advantage of it, like we have it now. Like, okay, Russia is doing something, let's pump more weapons to Ukraine for them to defend themselves. No, no, we are not a fan of conflict. We are just supporting. They have to defend now, stuff like so. Obviously, they want to take advantage of that. So, and they may now be lobbying into like important places, like say, where they make the laws, for instance, or where they
Yeah.
design those budget now. Like, you know what, support it and that kind of thing. And yeah, those things can now put us in perpetual state of conflict, of recurring conflict, but it might not be the cause of it necessarily. It's just like, okay, now there's a cause. Let's sort of lobby into it. Let's sort of, we need to make profit. But of course, capitalism is like, we want to make profit of anything, just like we have in COVID too. The pharmaceutical company, they cashed out big and they would rather allow it to continue.
Yeah.
No, it should not end. We should get our big bucks. But they were not the cause of it. They were just like, okay, now we have it. Let's take advantage.
Opportunist.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
just opportunists. So we do have, a lot of them. So, but do we necessarily need to have a like weaponry industry that should be? Of course not. Like, what are you hoping that there should be war?
So they will
Hopefully,
say like,
yeah,
so the argument for them would be like, if you don't have like private industries or industries that are devoted towards developing these weapons,
yeah.
your enemies,
We
like in the
develop
case of the US, maybe like China or Russia, they are going to go ahead anyway.
So that's
So
really
it's like everybody is like trying to push ahead to develop new weapons because they fear that if they don't develop new weapons, the other side will develop the new weapons anyway. So it's like this, like we said in the beginning, this sense of fear and threat that is constantly fueling this rage towards
That's
warfare.
true. I don't see the correlation between that and private enterprises making weapon because the government can have an arm of it doing that anyways and is doing that solely for that purpose. But if we now start having private sectors doing that, then clearly it's not necessarily in the interest. I mean,
Yeah.
during the World War, they had to start the Manhattan Project as a necessity, and that was done. So imagine if there was a company that say, what we'll be doing is like we'll be having different Manhattan projects from time to time just because we want to protect it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Apparently, people are just taking opportunity of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I say about it. Like the privatization of it is obviously for the profit of it.
So you see, like the government is not so efficient, so that's why private companies have to come in to do what
Who
the
are in the
government is not
government
doing.
really? Private individuals. I'm just saying that
That's true.
if that was the primary motive, then it would be a government thing. It would be like a societal thing. That okay, this I'm just like NASA, for instance, like this is the weapons program,
Yeah.
and this is what we do
Yeah.
because we are fighting against. So once we now start having private entities setting up companies, then clearly they are just doing businesses, and all they want is how to make profit out of it.
Yeah. If
Exactly.
I watch like your take on it, do you think like the industrial complex, the military industrial complex is like a necessity, or do you think they're like majorly like a cause of further warfare in our world?
I think it's both. They are just a necessary evil because they are always going to produce weapons, and every country basically has their own complex. In US, maybe it's more pronounced because of the whole capitalist nature, but everywhere around the world, every people make money from wars. And that there are people that they are arms dealers. Like in Russia, they deal with black market weapons. They are basically the number one suppliers of black market weapons. There's a guy that the US just released, I think, is it Victor Bout also, that they exchanged for
Mm.
a female basketball
Yeah, yeah,
player. Yeah, he's an arms dealer. So these people will always make money in war. Funny enough, in World War I, the US were not directly involved at the beginning, but they were funding Russia, sorry, no, yeah, Russia, UK, and France, and we're doing it through JP Morgan. JP Morgan is the big bank.
Mm.
So, what that bank at that time, would they want the war to stop as long as their interests were not threatened? Because whatever transactions and things that are happening, they are gaining from it.
Yeah.
Some countries want war to keep going on, so everyone is distracted while they are
They are
taking
doing
the
their own thing.
resources. Even in Nigeria, this war on terrorism is paying some people
Yeah.
now. People that make boots, people that make military wares, people that sell food to people in the army. I'm talking the basics now. I'm not talking of people now contracting the weapons like generals and all of that. They, like, at some point they pay to keep it going.
So, but do you think that that's profiting from war
Yeah.
is now like is in a way it is being like how do I put it? There's a
Exploited.
not even like exploited, but like there's now a sort of like an artificial push towards warfare. Like no, normally people will have disagreements. Maybe they're fighting over land, and then they say, "Okay, you have weapons, give us weapons." Yeah, and
Yeah.
then there's not a difference. There's a difference between that and then when you are not instigating or
Mm.
deliberately trying to instigate the war so that
Yeah.
you can sell off your old weapons.
I don't think it's more of a push. I think it's more of either what I'll call trigger or not wanting the situation to come to a
To be
decisive
resolved,
end. You just keep it
persistent
going.
warfare. Yeah,
Yeah, keep it persistent. Just let it linger, and you keep your money
enough
keeps
peace
coming in. Yeah,
to
just
make things
enough
calm.
peace, not controlled chaos. That's what we call it.
Yeah. I think that's insightful. So, so hopefully, like, there could be changes made to the military industrial complex, right? Do you support like any form of like restructuring?
In the US, for example, like before Dwight Eisenhower left, he warned about the military industrial complex,
Yeah,
and it has grown and grown and grown and grown. Like, so it's going to be difficult because every country is in an arms race. So if they keep going and with that, they need more money. They are going to pump in more money, need more knowledge and all of that. So people will keep making money from these things. If you stop, your enemy might not stop. Where you think you stop, that's when another person thinks he has to continue.
yeah.
So basically, it's going to be a very difficult concepts to deal with. I just hope we have enough people with
Willpower
requisite um leadership to deal with such situations, because at some point they might even grow bigger
than the
than the
government.
government.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another thing I wanted to say. Like the sense of there's now lobbyist groups, right? Even in the US, even in Nigeria as well, right? There's a sort of like lobbying for the continuation of arming, the military, of course, the people that are arming the military are these private companies, right? In Nigeria as well, securing defense contracts as well. A lot of people come to lobby for those contracts as well, right? So, do you sense like maybe Senator, do you think that there's a better way it can be restructured? Like even if it is a necessary evil, as Obi said, like okay, the nation industrial contest may need to exist, But can it be restructured in a way that prevents this exploitation of warfare?
Yeah, I mean, this is where the government come in and leadership really plays a huge role. And like Obi said, you need people with requisite knowledge, you know. And not just that, that would not put their own intention over the overall well-being of
State.
the country or society. You know. So because in cases like this, you just want to curb it, honestly. Like that is just the way around it. You want to put a limit to how well it's going to expand, how many people are going to be going into that. That's what I'm saying. Like this kind of industry shouldn't be privatized, to be very honest. Like it should be like a more public affair. Like the public actually have a say in what is happening. But right now it's being privatized and it now becomes a thing of my personal interest and
Mm,
the interest of the stakeholders, for
yeah.
instance. And that's exactly what we've seen, let's say, with pharmaceutical, which I mean there's also biological weapon in warfare
Yeah.
anyways, which have those kind of people dictate what it is, what information is being given out. We cannot even tell whether or not they are true or false because it depends on what they say. But if they are more public oriented, at least you are required to give all information necessary based on what you are doing, why you are doing them, and to whom it's meant for. So maybe in cases like that, if you have leadership that can do that, basically, it's a public thing, let's say like NASA, for instance, and it's being directly managed by the government. Maybe that can help it. But if that's not the case, anywhere people make money from, people will always go there. You can't stop them from going there, right? And they will always hope that there's a reason why people patronize them. And if that way means that they want to lobby, given a very classic example, like in case of Nigeria where we have kidnappings and all.
Mm,
Obviously, they are being supplied by weapons, and people like that will want the issues to continue.
to
And many
continue.
of them actually have influence or probably are directly involved with governance. And you will see that, oh, this is the kind of laws you should make that would really curb this or even make some significant changes. And they would not do it or maybe make it linger
Yeah.
for many years for them to say. And you now start to see that, come on, like if you are not gaining from this, then why did that happen? That's why it shouldn't be privatized because people will always put their interests ahead of the interests of others, so long they are not affected, anyways. So it should be a thing. I think what US did by kind of consolidating it sort of makes sense, but then again, it's not exactly as efficient as the way because these are still private entities, and you can see how clearly they are lobbying to it, and they're not really listening to the people. They are doing their own, and they have this to now
Profit.
like do that with the government and all. So, but if it's a government thing, it's a thing like, oh, this is what the people want, or this is what the people don't want, and also.
Yeah, interesting, interesting.
Yeah, for me, I feel, as you said, there might have to be some sort of significant government control, though there is obviously going to be some secrecy behind this
Since
because you don't want your adversary to know
Yeah.
what
they are
you have,
developing.
what new
Yeah,
weapon you
yeah,
have. If there is a world war today, you will see whatever weapon you think everybody makes noise about,
Yeah.
maybe hypersonic missile or
yeah,
ICBMs that people talk, you will see something new.
yeah.
So, like, if you look at World War II, the weapons that they started with and the weapons they ended with
Yeah.
were very different.
Yeah.
It's just in space of 5 6 years. So, obviously there has to be some secrecy to it, but as we both agreed, that leadership that comes in where you draw the line between arming yourself and overtly, putting yourself
Instigating.
in situations where you want to keep the money rolling in.
Yeah.